Welcome! And we're back! This is Two Idiots Talking About Art. I'm Rodney. That is Naoto.
Hi.
We are here to talk about the quote-unquote starving artist for episode 3. So, this is something that Naoto and I have talked about many times. Obviously more recently because we decided we wanted to make a topic. I think it's a really important topic. Particularly, I think the one thing that really made it stand out for me was during the pandemic, when they listed, I think it was Singapore Sunday Times or something like that, that listed the top essential jobs versus the top non-essential jobs. And an artist was the top non-essential. It was number 1 on the non-essential job.
Yeah.
The ironic thing about this is that all of the layout, the graph and everything had to have been made by a graphic designer, an artist. So it's like true. The dumbest thing I think I've ever seen.
Also, just if we're talking about that during the pandemic, let's just go and say the scope of, or the, let's use the art in a very broad way, like anything entertainment, anything creative.
Yeah.
Is
exactly. Yeah. It covers the spectrum.
I remember the very first, was it Georgia or Florida? One of the others that immediately decided, oh, screw this. We want to go, like the first place that actually had the riot or protests against mask and quarantine mandatory quarantine and mask wearing. The first places they wanted to go was bowling, nail salon, and movies.
Yeah, or they get a haircut too.
Yeah.
Like, I remember seeing the picket signs about that. I need a haircut.
It's like, well,
oh my god,
you should have learned how to do that back when you went to college, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I did.
Trade school.
We all did.
Do the trade school.
Anyways, yeah, so we're here to talk about that, or maybe in a sense debunk the idea, or make it
destigmatize. I feel like that's good,
yeah. Well, because it's something that's stuck with us, especially for our generation. 3 things, in my opinion, that came along our career as an artist, or the venture into the world of the arts, was 1, if you're an artist, you were slightly crazy. There was something slightly off with you. Number 2, if you were an artist, you probably smoked, which ironically, it was kind of true. I almost don't know a single artist friends that didn't smoke, even for a brief period in their life. And then the third one, if you're an artist, you're probably starving. You go to your day job and collect whatever leftover food you can, take it home, which, again, I have done that and seen friends do that too. But also, it's a concept in itself, the starving artist. It's both very broad, and also how truthful is that statement, because it's such a case by case.
Yeah.
Again, despite the fact that I do mention that I do have real life reference to all those things.
Yeah.
But also it's not exact. I don't know. I think it has been quite exaggerated within the idea of starving artists, and that's kind of what we want to talk about.
Yeah,
like what does that really mean, and how does that apply to us living in this day of age in comparison to whenever that term initially got coined.
Yeah, when it might have been a little bit more romantic and not such a stereotype, where it's just like almost a weight against an artist or anybody who wants to be an artist.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so for my theory that I have, I guess, would be, how many parents do you hear about who have told their kids they don't want them to pursue an art career, or pursue a film career, or pursue a music career because there's no money in it? How are they going to ensure their success? How are they going to save up for retirement? How are they going to buy a house? How are they going to do 2.5 kids? Blah, blah, blah. and all of that. I I think that's really heavily related to how the term starving artist is used now, because I think it's used as a deterrent to keep you from wanting to pursue that. I know I've had a lot of people, like people we've gone to school with, and other artists that I've met who have decided that they don't want to do art full time, or they can't do it because they've got to pay for their lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
And I know starving artist, it still has a little bit of that romantic ideal to it, whereas you're sacrificing everything in order to pursue your work, to create your
Right.
art. And I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. I know I have definitely sacrificed a lot. Even my partner has sacrificed a lot. And she's, been riding on that with me for a decade now, just trying to make a career out of it. And I mean, it's definitely challenging, and it's a slow moving, unless you're just at that rock star status. But even that, I mean, is a lot of it's in the right place at the right time, as far as being successful. So, that all being said, I think it's in a way used against us, and it might be innocently done that way, but it also, and subconsciously or unconsciously, but I think there is like an intent to like keep people from wanting to do that. Like, you build up enough idea in your head, like as a parent who's probably generally worried about your kid being successful. And
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that parents necessarily use it in a way of deterring them from that career, but it's based on what they've been told that career will lead to, right? It's not like
I totally think there are
want their
parents that are like not into it. Like, they don't want you to be an artist. Like,
You think so?
yeah, I don't think all of them are. I mean, like,
Sure.
I come from, my mom was extremely supportive of me doing art, and she always did something to encourage that. Like, she took one of my really crappy drawings as a kid and had it printed on a shirt and given to me for Christmas. So I was like, I mean, she was always like super supportive, and the rest of my family was too. And so I was fortunate in that. And
Likewise, same here. Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, but I've heard of people who said, my parents didn't really want me to go to art school, and or I just kind of do it on the side because I was discouraged to do it, and everybody in my family was a doctor, so they wanted me to go to vet school. So
That's the funny thing about all that, because on one end you have the parents not wanting your kids to be an artist because obviously there's no guarantee or security in their future. And it's funny because the other end of the story is usually like, no, my son or my daughter is not going to be an artiste. He or she is going to be a doctor. But they don't never follow up with, because I want my child to be saving lives. No, it's because
exactly.
because the money is really, really, really good.
Yes.
I'm sure there are parents out there that have like, I want your life to be meaningful. You have a talent, you have the family gene of the doctores, that you are
Doctores.
in the doctores. You're meant to be a doctor to save lives out there. Be the Doctors Without Borders, and make the difference that you can, and change the lives of others out there that is less fortunate than you. Like, I'm sure there are stories like that out there, but it's not the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole point, I think, is that it's really about the profit that you can make out of the career, and artists do get the lower end of the stick.
Yeah. Yep. You could say the shit end of the stick, probably. I feel like that's fair for me.
Yeah.
But I've had success too, which is good. So I mean it's mixed. It's a mixed bag, but it is fucking hard. Like, you really have to like really work to do it. And
well, that's another thing.
I think that's lost in it. Like, you to be able to honor like a person who is so passionate about something that they really want to succeed in it, and their version of success, just because it doesn't match your version of success, is looked down on. So
I was gonna say that kind of depends on one's idea of what a success is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, it's a cliche to say that. Well, I don't make any money, but I have a rich and colorful life.
Yep.
Like, sure, um, that's a cliche, but it's kind of the truth. Like, a lot of people are not necessarily encapsulated in that materialistic world, or
Hmm.
the value. The priorities in their values are slightly different than others. That's all it is. But they do push that nonsense of, like you said, like, well, what are you going to do? Just paint for change for pennies here and there? Like, what? How are you going to live your life like that? I was like, well, the truth is, you can. There are ways to go about it, which is why it's kind of interesting, the notion, especially in our time of days, our current modern era. I don't necessarily see that it has to be one or the other, like art or um, I don't staying away from the starving artist cliche. Like, well, what does that even mean? Like, I know we had this discussion before. Like, do we physically have to be starving every day in order to be qualified as starving artists?
Yeah.
Or
I feel like there's probably some figurative and literal, top or points to that with like,
Mhm.
you're sacrificing your resources
Yeah,
in order to give to your career. So, I mean, I'm sure that some people are like, yes, they can't afford a burrito right now, so they're probably gonna be starving. Or, it's but also like in the metaphorical sense of like not having all of the luxury that we have in life these days. You know.
yeah. Well, yeah. These are. It is a luxury. The mere thought that I'm actually doing this podcast with you shows that I have certain instruments that I had to buy at one point. Shows that there's some form of luxury and materialistic lifestyle within it. So yeah, but that's the point. Like, again, I don't think it's a take one or the other kind of situation, right? I mean, you can choose to just fully dedicate your life to art and just go straight for that, and the chances of you actually making a success out of it is definitely way better than the other. But I don't know. I personally hate the insecurity of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You
It's
know?
hard. I agree. I think that's hard. I mean, there is a lot of like I could have 2 months of wonderful sales and commission work, and then
Hmm.
6 months of having it just be bone dry, and then
Hmm.
trying to figure out how I fill in the gaps with my income there. So it's it's definitely a sacrifice in that sense. I mean, because we're not getting consistent reliability in our income unless we're teaching, and we have a successful teaching
Yeah.
position, at a university level. And but even then, you have to like pursue more education and get up to
Hmm.
that, or have enough. I would say personal experience to be able to build up that, like with ateliers and awards and whatnot and blah blah blah. But yeah,
I think we should be slightly clear on one thing, since we're talking about this particular concept of a starving artist. Um, in my mind, and I think, well, Ronnie and I did talk about this before, that we are pretty specifically talking about fine artists
yes,
in this scene.
yeah. Right now, I do think that this translates to a lot of different art forms,
There are
like
different art forms.
yeah,
Sorry, musicians are one of them.
musicians.
Actors,
I
I
think
understand, are
I'm
performers.
sure filmmakers and can
Hmm.
have that same sort of struggle in their own genres. It's yeah, but specifically fine art right now because this is what we have experience in.
Mm. Basically, artist and the seller being one of the same situation, not like, obviously working for a company and you're a graphic designer over there. Like, oh
Yeah,
well, that's a career, that's a job, right?
yeah,
And there's a bit of a difference to.
totally.
Sorry, what
No,
were
no,
you
no.
gonna
I
say?
was just gonna continue on with what you're saying. Please go ahead.
Which which is also an interest position that we put ourselves in, where I guess it's kind of the similar idea as a entrepreneur.
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 The the entrepreneur. We are
The entrepreneur.
artistic entrepreneurs.
Well, you start from you start from nothing
Yeah.
and then go from there, right?
Yeah.
And that risk is all on you. But also there's not necessarily any guidelines or a path that's laid in front of you that you follow, which puts this kind of a career decision in a very unique place because they will teach you in schools. I can't remember if we talked about this in a previous episode or we were just talking about it, but anyways, they can't fully pull your hand, like grab your hand and guide you down the road. Be like, okay, so you're gonna go here first, and then you're gonna
Right.
go over there next, and then this is what you're gonna do. Like there isn't any of that,
No, it's too spread out as far as like what you can do, and not one
Mhm.
thing I feel like is 100% reliable.
Yeah.
So there's some that are more than others, but like you can't just be like, well, I'm gonna go be a commission artist, bye, and then
Mhm.
be able to do that and have full success instantly. Like it could take a long time, and you could build up to that, but it could take a while.
Well, let's take an instance. Like, okay, so if you, like I mentioned before, I was initially studying computer animation back at the academy, and in the portfolio classes and whatnot, everybody could be working on completely different subject matter to put into their portfolios, but in the end of the day, it's not really about what you put in, but more about like how well you do with the thing you're working on, because that's what they're looking for.
Mhm.
There's your skills, your technical side of working with the medium and the platform. But in the case of fine artists, people judge your work and will show interest in it based off obviously skill, but also the subject matter that
Yeah, the
you decide to
content.
work, the content and the creativity of it.
Yeah.
It's a combination of things, so it all lands on you to make that pitch, to make a sell for it. Yeah, and that's the craziest part about it because it's a lot of I wouldn't say it's a gamble per se, but I feel like
It's like extreme vulnerability for sure.
it is, because when you start off, I don't think a lot of people initially um go into art or start creating their initial first startup works based off what the audience are looking for. It's not like they go market searching. It's like, oh, I don't know why, but a lot of people are looking at bird videos. Maybe I should do paintings on birds. Like nobody does that.
Yeah.
They're all. I feel like everybody that will claim themselves as artists kind of goes in there thinking that they have this freedom to create whatever they want to,
Mhm.
especially being a fine artist. Mentioning that, you go in with this ammunition that is your paintings, your sketches, and whatnot. They're like, oh, these are the things that I love to create, and you just chug it out there into the world, and see how that affects,
Yeah.
like how
Are
the
you
reaction
just
that comes
watching
back.
like
You're just
Instagram and
like, you're
Facebook,
like,
like, oh, yeah,
is this going to?
somebody's gonna like it in a second.
Yeah. So yeah, it's in a sense, like I said, I see it almost like a gamble right off the bat,
Yeah.
But then you start learning about what works and what doesn't, and it's up to you how you want to move forward with those knowledge. But like I think you put it very eloquently, there is such huge vulnerability in the very starting point of artist's career.
Totally. And I like that you said like we don't start with like I'm gonna do this because everybody else is doing that. Like generally we do something because we're interested in it. I mean, I can speak from my own experience where I have done something like painting portraits because I was just fascinated with being able to capture someone's gaze and their eyes, and the challenge of constructing a portrait was a challenge that I loved and I still do. And as I went and grew in my skill and career and all of that, I started to get commissions here and there. So I started to kind of curb that a little bit and make it into like, well, this is what people like and this is what I get commissions off of. So I'm going to start pushing that a little bit more. So it starts to pull away from that original vulnerability, which it's still vulnerable. It's just different in a different kind, in a way. But
Right.
like but I think that initial vulnerability, like of sharing what's honest for you, and then showing it to
Hmm.
people and having them judge it on the content of the subject matter,
Yep.
is it's very hard, you know.
It really
And
is.
I give credit to any sort of creative person, musician, filmmaker, all that as well, that put something like it's really a piece of them, because it's
Hmm.
impossible not to put a piece of your heart into this stuff, and to put it into what you create and to put it out there and to hope that it's received well, um is really fucking hard. It's so hard.
It really is. Whoa, language,
I
Mister
know. I mean,
Language. We've been curse word free for 3 episodes, and there
yeah,
you go. Wait,
letting them
actually, do
fly.
we?
No,
Maybe
I've
I
been cussing through the
did.
whole thing.
um, yeah, no, it really is. All right, so let's reel it back just a little bit.
Yep, bring it on in.
Um, with all that being said, is how do we destigmatize the concept of starving artist? Like,
I know we do we
because I don't think, like I said, I think there is a literal term, but also it has a higher uh romanticized notion attached to it more than it being a reality. Or it's, I'm not gonna say it's a myth,
I feel like it's a
but
derogatory term. I feel like it's just to
yeah,
put
I
it,
think that's a good,
yeah, to put us
just put it,
down, to say, well, they're sacrificing everything. They're not going to make any money, and
which is so weird because I was talking to my buddy Larry. This was a while back, and it was saying like, I think I was talking to him like over a drink, mentioning about the purpose behind an artist, like the struggle that I always have trying to be an artist, or becoming an artist, is finding a value within your work,
yeah,
especially unlike say your particular sets of work like that has a voice that you're an advocate for mental health awareness, which is amazing, and it has a certain value of contribution to the society. While my stuff that I do is it's literally for my personal joy more than any sort of message or anything. Anywho, so I was kind
well,
of
so's mine.
explaining.
Mine is totally too.
Well,
Mine's totally selfish, and in most of it, it's all for me. But I get the added bonus pleasure if I'm able to connect with somebody on it too. So
the funny thing is that I have thought about, like, well, maybe there's something I could kind of, you say, like, put my emotions on my sleeve and just let it out there to the world, like the message I want to be heard, or not maybe heard, but I want to voice out my opinion about something, and maybe that could support somebody out there. So I thought about things that like I'm interested that would, uh, so I think it's during the pandemic, like I thought about potentially doing some artworks based off of like the riots that were going around or the racism that's been happening. But then as I try to think of concepts, I was like, well, no, because I just feel fake because it's something that I never have done. I don't necessarily, not that I'm not passionate about it, but I'm trying to,
like you,
I feel like I'm trying to sell myself out there to using what's happening
oh
in the
yeah,
world as
okay,
an excuse to sell my piece and get recognition over that. And I couldn't do that.
that makes sense.
Especially because it's not something that I live by, it's not
Yeah.
something that affects me. And that just felt like I was riding on a bandwagon, so I just immediately dropped that whole idea. What
Well,
we did together, with um, the victims,
yeah,
Black Lives Matter victims portrait workshop, that was great. That was more fitting for what I did.
yeah.
You know, Anywho, so back, reel it back. Um, I was talking to Larry and talking about all what I just mentioned, and he tells me, "Well, you know, in 1,000 years, when every human race just dies, goes extinct, and nothing's left, and some random alien in their spacecraft comes landing into our atmosphere and just drops down on one of the lands. The first thing they're going to see are literally art-based stuff.
Yeah,
That's going to be something that's going to a legacy that carries on even after we're dead. Like none of the other stuff matters.
true.
Like if we're talking like long-term effect, it's the arts is something that's going to sustain and live on. I was like, huh, that is true.
Very cool. He's a wise sage, Larry is.
He is. Like he's got some 3-armed alien. I don't know why 3, but 3-armed alien is gonna pick up your Yoda on a bookshelf painting right there behind you.
Oh, I was like,
And look at that go
what do
like,
you what?
oh.
Yeah, I forgot.
Like, well, these people used the creatures of this land used to be very tiny.
They made their books
And
way
also-
too big.
Way too big.
And what's a
also
book?
green. Yeah. I thought that was kind of I thought that almost saved my soul when he told me that. I was like, oh, that's really nice to hear. You know, it gave me a bit of a value to my own work,
Oh, nice.
regardless.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of thing. Even if you could make one person happy with your piece, I think that's
important. That's big.
That's important.
I mean, I think there's a butterfly effect with that. You know, a ripple in the pond that
agree.
can, like, how will that affect them? Like, where
Mhm.
will it go from there? Will they have a really great day with their kids or a relative or a friend or whatever, and then that affects their day and then their day and blah blah blah. I've said blah blah
Like
blah
already-
like 15 times today, just so you know.
I
I don't know why I'm on it right now, but I'm just like blah blah blah. But
It's our time filler.
yeah, that's my filler. That's my word filler for the day.
Yeah, if you pull out a timer, basically you'll hear us saying blah 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 for 30 minutes, and the content itself is about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
By the way, I already hear the future voice of a few audiences that will hear this and be like, did he just compare himself to a doctor by saying that his works are important and blah blah blah? Like, no, I'm not saying that artists are more important than any other career out there. Like, that's not the point. It's just that there's a bad rap happening, like that gets tossed towards artists or people that wants to be an artist. You know,
Yeah.
and it's just as important. And if anybody out there that disagrees to that statement, I am so sorry. You are being quite delusional, especially while living in a society. That's the thing. Like, of course, somebody that could help the nearly dead come back to life. You know, someone could resuscitate a life or do an open heart surgery, or you know, I don't know, an acupuncture that healed somebody's back, which actually I could use one myself. People that works people that works in the service industry, you know,
Mhm.
don't mock them. They're making your food. It's always such a weird
It's
thing
a
when people
hard
think
job.
they're higher than.
I know. It always
like-
blows me away. It's like, obviously, you've
You're-
never worked that job.
Yeah.
You've been
Oh,
privileged enough to never do that.
I'm sorry. What do you do? You're a CEO at a dildo manufacturer. Oh, good for you.
I work at my
how
dad's trust fund.
Yeah. Oh, that's also the thing. Most people that will actually talk down to said citizens that works hard in those kind of a community or the industry usually has some sort of a leg up from the get-go, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not everybody,
It's like,
obviously.
what's it? Oh my God. Kim Kardashian, how she's like, you got to get off your ass and work. Blah. And it's like, well, yeah, it's easy to say when you get $1 billion holding your ass up.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Totally random, but has nothing to do with this podcast, but when Kim Kardashian tried, was it Kim? I don't know. One of the Kardashians tried to copyright the name kimono.
What?
Yeah, there was like a brand of underwears that she was trying to sell, and I think it was called kimono. Maybe I'm wrong. It was a yeah, or yukata or kimono. I forgot which it was, but she was going to use that as a name for her new brand of underwears. It's like I got so pissed off. I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
oh
They're just
no,
like,
no, no, no,
what's
no,
wrong
no.
with the world? They're the worst. God.
I'm not about to say like, culture appropriation and all that is bad. Like I think people get a little too offended, but at the same time, no, you can't steal actual word that has been used for generations and
No.
generation and to this day still. All right,
Seriously.
I got that out of my system, so let's go
There.
back.
I know. I was fired up about that. You need to get off your ass and work thing pretty bad. I just be like
Uh,
painting. I'm like, God damn. Like,
the funny thing, I still don't know who they are. Like, I don't know why they're famous. I don't know what they do. I know
nothing.
the base.
Nothing. They've done nothing. I don't know. They've like inherited money. That's basically it.
Ah, man, it's so weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's pull it back a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, let's
now
pull it back all
now that you've
the
had
way
the Rodney
back.
Naoto soapbox, we're gonna bring it right back around to the starving artist.
All right. So, your take on it, as far as the starving artist, is that it's a derogatory term
I feel like it is.
that is
I
tossed
feel like I've
around.
only gotten into that recently. Like I said at the beginning of our talk, with that newspaper that printed that and said, artists being the number one non-essential job for during the pandemic, and having an artist have created the the whole layout of that, which it just like I think that really sunk in for starving artists, because there was a point in time where I romanticized that myself, and like, yeah, I'm just giving it all I have and I'm gonna make it. I don't care. I don't need anything. I just need like my brushes, my pencils, and something to paint or draw on. So
Which, ironically, I'm pretty sure a lot of people during the pandemic did kind of lean heavier on into the art scene.
they did. I feel like they did. I feel like artists really supported like all of the portraits they did of
Hmm.
nurses and doctors.
Oh yeah.
You know, especially all of the stuff through the BLM
Hmm.
movement that was so heightened then, and I mean, still is, but I mean, when it was at that apex there, it was, there's just it really, I feel like, took off. A lot of artists were helping each other out. Like there was a few that were doing like $200 paintings, and
Oh yeah.
they would be really good size and definitely worth way more than $200. But they would set a base limit so
Hmm.
they could sell that painting to people who would enjoy the work from a well-known artist, uh, and the artists would be able to pay some of their bills too. But they're being able to share, and they're being able to build a community and
Hmm.
and reach out and say, hey, we're nobody's alone. We're in this too. So
Let's talk a little bit about um struggling artist versus to a starving artist. I think those are two completely different idea conceptually.
please expand.
Um, well, the info that you shared me earlier, as far as like the struggling artist, kind of also associated with more mental health side of the artist, which is kind of
Oh yeah,
interesting.
like the suffering artist,
The
maybe.
suffering artist, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. That's what I'm thinking more or less. Um, which I did not know this until you shared me that the majority, the percentage of artists that is considered artists, kind of has some sort of either depression or substance abuse as a as a form that comes along with it.
Wait, did I share that or did you share that?
You shared
I
that.
thought you shared that.
No, you shared me that.
What?
It's
Anyway.
the I think it was the Forbes.
Oh, the Forbes thing. Yes, I did share that. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, the Forbes article. Yes, there's a Forbes, article. Yeah,
Whoops.
it's like most of it, you know, well, we're experimental people and experimental things happen sometimes, I think. So, but
I think
yeah,
there's
there's, go ahead. You go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I was going to say there's I think it's a different concept, but there's also an association to it that kind of follows with the idea of one being a struggling artist to, because for a lot of people, art is also, aside from a means to survive, it's also a means to cope, right?
Hmm.
I think
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fair thing to
That is
say.
a 1,000% accurate thing.
Yeah. In that aspect of it, like does the starving kind of tend to come because of the stress, no, sorry, the say the depression or the substance abuse? Like how related are those? You know?
Mm. I think that you could get into the more figurative side of that too, of like what the starving is. Like, what do they need that they're going down that route? What are they
Right.
starving for? Like, has some of that stuff come from trauma in their past to why they focus on art? Like, does that been an outlet for that, or has it been? I mean, obviously, the if they're in a substance abuse situation, which can be definitely tied to being an artist, that's most
Yeah.
likely a trauma background um, thing coming up. And I mean, I know I express all of mine through my work, so that's blaringly obvious. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think when you're young, you're trying to like find your voice in so many different
Hmm.
ways, and as an artist, you that's its own way in itself of where you're trying to find your voice and your style. And a lot of that comes with experimentation. And I think when you're young, you're trying to figure out life too. And if you've got that trauma background and you're coming from and processing and trying to cope with, then you're finding different ways to cope. And
Wait, is that the journey to finding yourself? Is that something that's supposed to happen early in the early in
no, I
one's life?
no, I think it's just more aggressive when you're younger. I think
I'm
that's a
like,
perpetual thing. And
I'm
but
definitely still doing that.
no, I am too. I'm totally doing the same. But I think when you're younger, you're just there's a lot of formative years, right before
Yeah.
your brain is fully developed by the time you're 25. Like I remember from like 18 to 24, 5 were
Hmm.
the craziest years of my life. Like those were intense and
Yeah.
like really powerfully intense for so many reasons. And um, I think any artist getting started off, they're learning
Hmm.
so much about themselves. They're learning how to think more abstractly in their regular thought process, let alone related to art. So
Yeah.
they're coming into all of this new information on how to experience the world and what their role is in the world, and they see themselves a little bit more. And um, so I think that um, yeah, I have no idea what you actually said, or I think I just kind of went off on there. But anyway, like the
Oh, that's fine.
the
That's part of the
yeah
charm of this podcast, I think.
the essentially of what I was trying to say is like I think we were kind of talking about like the suffering artist a little bit, and yeah, so the I think that there is a lot of struggle that can happen, and finding yourself that can happen that can show up in different ways, whether it is some mental health
Hmm.
struggle or substance abuse struggle or pouring your heart onto a canvas, and and just there's a lot of ways that shows up,
Right.
and I think that's where some of the stigma comes too, because that probably seems unbalanced to people who have not experienced those things. So
Hmm.
if they haven't experienced that stuff and they're making a judgment call from way on the outside of like, wow, look at that person. They're doing a lot of partying and, self-destructive stuff. And they're an artist you know, that's an artist for you.
Right.
So they get lumped into this negative stereotype where in
Hmm.
the starving artist range and the suffering artist range. And I think that has really built up over the years as being where I said earlier, like a derogatory term because it looks
Hmm.
down. And, I think it's amazing that people who are maybe doing that stuff are finding ways
Hmm.
to actually cope with what's going on. for them and their
Yeah.
trauma backgrounds. Like, to be able to find a way to do it, it may not be the best way, but you are working on trying to solve a problem in yourself that you feel come up, an issue, maybe
Hmm.
not a problem, but so that's, I mean, pretty powerful in itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, like in anything in nature and human society, if we don't know all about it, a lot of times people are going to fear it or judge it.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very true. It was interesting in our previous episode with Corey Pitkin. Um, yep, I said that right.
You did a good job. uh,
We did bring up that one topic about how people perceive an artist, whether they're a full-time artist or if it's something they, I want to say on the side, but they have another job to support. Because they for the longest time, and I still do, tell everybody that I come across, what do you do? I was like, well, I paint, I sketch, do all that. I was like, oh, that's how you make a living? It's like, no. I also work at a restaurant, or I've done like film works on the side to support for my art. And it was funny because both Corey mentioned this, and you told me a story in the past as well about how people perceive that, as to if in one side, if you were to explain to the person you're talking to that you're a full-time artist, then there's a certain way they will actually react to that, or there's a certain way they look at you. While if you tell them like, oh no, I do art and also have another job, and they're like, oh, so the art is a hobby, art is
yes,
something
it
that
flips
it
a
does.
switch in them.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, you want to yeah, tell us that story again, because I think it's
So
interesting, and it actually kind of hits the
the
point.
workshop that I went to, is it that one that you're talking? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was at a Max Ginsberg workshop in Carmel, and oh man, that was such a great. I learned so much from him. He's a wonderful teacher and a wonderful artist. One of my favorites. I just
Hmm.
love his work, and I had the best experience there. Um, one of the other students in the class wanted to do this little going away dinner for everybody and just kind of celebrate. We made it to the end of the workshops, and it sounded great. And it was like somewhere on Pebble Beach, some restaurant. Holy mackerel, it was expensive,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it was, I mean, just super bougie for the crowd that was in the group. It was like, this is cool, but it's, I can say I've been here now, but it's also like, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody else is like super into it. And I mean, the food was okay and it was expensive. I mean, we paid for being on Pebble Beach. That was it,
Yeah.
basically. Um, anyway, this person was so nice all throughout the workshop. She came in and complimented my work every time she saw it. And we talked, and she mentioned she lived in Carmel, and I can't remember what part exactly, but she and her husband, I guess, were uh, going to like switch up one of the rooms and try to make it. They loved art. They love showing artist work in their
Mhm.
house, and so they thought, well, we're going to make one of our rooms a little gallery and have little house openings and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah. And she would be like, oh, I would just love, if you wanted to do that, and or ever wanted to show, and I just love your work. It's amazing. Blah 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 blah. Get down to it. We're having a conversation through dinner, and I mentioned that I was a hairstylist, and that I could see the look in her eye immediately change over, because she thought I was a full time artist. I never said that ever, not once, and she immediately went, "Oh," like that down, oh, where you're
Was there a
like,
little eye roll with it, like, oh,
yeah, basically something like that.
Susanna?
Yeah,
Oh dear.
I need to go over here for a minute, Susanna. And
Well, it was nice meeting Mr.
yeah, that was like 2/3 of the way through the dinner, and her tone completely changed with me after that. After she realized I was not a full time artist, and yeah, it just like And she's like, well, yeah, if you're interested, you can, reach out to me about showing in my house. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah. Bye.
What is with that, right?
I don't know. I don't understand that
I
at
think that's
all.
why the whole idea that you mentioned, the struggling artist is not, sorry, the starving artist itself is not just a derogatory term, but again, it's a very romanticized thing, and especially the older generation, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
That, sorry, out there, if that was,
Not all of them.
not all of them,
It can be present in that generation.
Exactly. There you go. There you
yes.
go. You're good with words, mister.
That's why I'm here. Not really.
No, but the romanticized idea, like, if you're not putting everything aside and just focusing on this passion of yours, and if you're not just barely scraping through life, then you can't be that good of an artist. Because how can you be? Like, I don't know if that's the kind of the notion that is attached with that statement.
Say it again.
Which is,
wait, say it one more time.
Well, it's just saying, like, say the lady in your story, like the way she reacts to it is, I'd assume is because there's a notion with the concept of starving artists.
I think so, yeah.
If you're not really dedicating everything in your life, and if you're not going out to the trash cans or in the bins, scraping out some leftover pizza crust or something in a Sunday afternoon.
If you're not a freak,
if you're not standing in the back alleyway behind a McDonald's, just going through and looking for the day old buns or whatnot to call that your meal for the week, then you're not good enough artist to put your piece on my wall. Or I don't know. I also do think that in the collector side, a piece is not good enough. There needs to be a story behind it.
Like a struggle, like or something, or like something.
Let's say like, oh yes, this is a piece by Rodney Thompson, back in the 21st century. Oh, would you like to know a great story about him? And then go off into this grand tale, and people are like, oh, that's amazing, that's amazing. And instead of the it's like, oh, this is a piece by Rodney Thompson. Yes, he was a hairstylist, and then he also painted on the side. Yes, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, I guess. Like, I don't know. I wonder if that's the reason. I'm trying to figure it out.
I don't know. That's a really good question. They're like, they're like, this is a piece by Arnold, and during his day job, he worked at Starbucks as a barista, but now he painted little portraits on the side. And I don't know if that would be how that would be perceived in the future if someone.
Well, because like, there's got to be a reason why art history talks about the artists and their lives. To be frank, who cares?
I really want to know what, like, versus, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I said that in such hatred, but it's not bad. Like,
who the cares?
Well, because it goes into so much detail. Like, but okay, for say Van Gogh,
yeah,
him and his mental health issue gets talked about a lot,
so
especially in his later.
Yeah.
It makes a great story to talk about and attach to the piece as well. But I don't know, like, without the story, would the piece never be as great of a piece that is currently spoken, or how we talk about it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird because the artwork does reflect the artist. So it is fun and great to learn about the histories of each artist. Maybe that's what's lacking in modern day art. You don't really get to know the artist as much, especially over social media. I did a whole 180 right there. I was so mad. I'm trying to figure this out, guys. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, this is a conversation. Like, we're conversing. We're trying to just explore our feelings.
No, but honestly, what do you think? Is the art, are pieces only as good as the artist and their background story, or does it even matter?
I feel like it's maybe in the middle there somewhere. I think their background story helps you understand in a way. I don't think it
Mm,
should be reliant on a background story, though. I think what they create becomes its own thing, and that
mm,
should have its own voice. Even though your voice is attached to it, it
hmm.
is its own entity in a way. So it should.
Like,
I don't think it should be
okay,
weighed on like how Van Gogh's stuff is like. You know how he was like, "Oh, that poor soul was just so tortured," but look at all the beautiful work that came from that. It's
well,
like,
here's a slightly good example. I don't know if this is gonna. I'll know if it's a good example once I say it out loud. It's hard to hear in my head. There's a lot of voice in there. Oh.
and that's when we found out
uh,
Naoto had dissociative identity disorder.
Shh, WE. Naoto's talking. Um,
Almost lost the coffee there.
damn, I was hoping for a little. Anyways, David Blaine.
David Blaine.
Is he a good magician because he's a tortured soul and he keeps putting himself to the extreme of a situation, like encapsulate himself in a ice coffin? Is that? I know it's slightly different, but I'm looking at like the acts that he does in those extreme situations. Whether it's what did he do, like 40, like 36 hours locked up in a glass cage hanging from
Oh yeah,
20 feet above, or the ice coffin, or stand on top of a pole for however long, whatever. The torture side thing, which had nothing to do with magic, it was an enduring test as well as
yeah. I was like, there's not much
you know.
magic involved in that.
But I think that kind of reflected him as a personality than the magician, right? So
Yeah,
I'm gonna call that the artist side. Then you got the magic tricks,
right. Yeah.
like
Okay. Yeah.
I know it's such a long span of a way, but that was the only example I was able to bring up. Like, would if we were to take that personality away from it, would he not been a great musician? I mean, his stuff is amazing
Hmm.
back in the day. I haven't seen it in a while, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But then you get guys like Chris Angel, who's even more so weird than David Blaine. He thought that was the top of it, you know. But I don't know.
He's like the Motley Crew of
Yeah,
magicians.
he is the rock star of magicians, that's for sure.
Yeah. And just so I
Okay,
don't like Motley Crue, I just wanted to point that out.
you know, actually, I didn't care for them for the longest time, but then I went to a show. Funny story, completely irrelevant to this podcast episode. I went back to San Francisco for a wedding, and as I got off the plane and I was heading over to the BART station, one of our friend Wes called me. And it was like, "Hey, you want to go? What are you doing tonight? You want to go to a Motley Crue show?" I'm like,
He just
what? Like,
randomly had Motley Crue tickets.
he did. It's like, yeah, I would. And so I went to go see them. I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of Motley Crue, but their live show is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure they put on a really good show. I just cannot. I like to shout at the devil, but aside from that,
Yeah,
it's like that hairband shit just drove me crazy. I hated it.
I'm on board if any bass player or guitarist has a pyro gimmick attached to their guitar that the bass player, every time
You're
we hit
like,
like a boom,
I'm
a
sold.
flame just
Yeah,
a flamethrower just shot us on fire up into the sky. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
yeah,
Anyways, again, not relevant to what we're talking about.
yeah. And we'll reel it back
uh,
in.
yeah, well, let's reel it back in for the one audience that still
Yeah,
managed to continue
our
on,
one
trek
single
through our.
listener. Yeah,
What were we talking about?
I have no
Oh,
idea.
right. The personality to the actual artwork.
Oh, yeah. So if we need to know what their background is to make
Mhm.
it a successful piece, and I was saying,
Yes.
I think it's kind of somewhere in between. I think it can help give you insight to the piece, but I
Mhm.
don't think it should be reliant on
Yeah,
how successful it is.
I think I think that's a perfect way to place it, because there has to be some association to that with the struggling artist or the starving artist side of it. Because again, do we have to be a starving artist in order to be a successful artist?
Mm. There's the
That's kind
trick.
of the question I always have about it.
I don't think so. I think there's several people like right out of college that have done
Well, because
well.
because the default idea is that if you go into fine art, you're a starving artist,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. If you're
That's
gonna do the
that's just
painting and
thrown onto
drawing,
you.
yeah, you're just
Yeah,
gonna struggle and struggle and struggle.
yeah. So how do we destigmatize this whole concept though?
That's a great
What can we
question.
do?
I guess we have to do a podcast or something about it.
I don't know. It I don't know. That sounds like a horrible idea. I get the feeling that whoever does that podcast will eventually get derailed so bad that
They start talking
by
about
the
Motley Crue or something.
yeah, by the end of it, I think they don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
That's amazing.
Well, I guess we don't know how one could exactly
Yeah, I think it'll just be an overtime sort of thing. And maybe if people could have a conversation about it more often and be uh, like finding a new term for it, would just say artist instead of like you would say lawyer or you know
mhm.
cashier, whatever
Well,
your job is, and don't say put starving in front of it.
yeah. Well, I guess we don't have the way any pointers to getting rid of the whole phrase altogether, but I think there are some pointers we could mention about how to, if you ever find yourself in said struggling artist hell or whatever that is. Um, Definitely, there are certain things you can do to help yourself get out of that funk. One, again, this is a personal opinion
Hmm.
that Roddy, you might not agree with. Anyways, I say don't be afraid of side jobs.
I agree. Yeah, totally.
One, you don't have to. You really don't have to be literally starving to be an artist.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to get yourself out there, including while making art. Which is a couple pointers that came from certain sources that I've listened to earlier. Thanks to you, Rodney. You know,
You're welcome.
mhm. Yeah, don't be afraid of commercial works. That was a great one, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I used to be super anti, like, no, I'm not selling out. I'm gonna paint what I
Yeah,
want to paint. And I started doing commissions. Like, okay, I need money.
I mean,
I gotta make a living, so
there's got
I
to be a
gotta do
good
something.
balance. Yeah, there's got to be a good balance of you sustaining a lifestyle or a life
Yeah,
while still being able to do your work. Uh, there's no parameter of like where the balance is, but that's
yeah.
something you got to find out yourself.
And
But it's
everybody's
not.
different too. Every path is going to be different. Like my path is not going to be the same as your path, and your path isn't going to be
Mhm,
the same as the next artist. So there's some similarities here and there, but we've all got different circumstances and resources
mhm.
that are available to us. So it's just going to look
Also,
different.
it's such a good way to kind of test yourself out to see if the drive is there or not. You
Hmm.
do need the drive. You absolutely need a drive,
Yeah.
and take it from me. Like I I get I did get swindled away at a period. You know, money making was pretty decent. Working the side job that was supposed to be supporting the art and slowly kind of like lean towards that way.
Hmm.
But the drive never disappeared. I still wanted to do it. And I knew the shitty end of the bargain of doing, especially trying to go back at that point. That okay, well, I'm gonna have to sacrifice a little bit of whether it's income or my free time or whatever it is, but slowly pulling it back. But again, you just need to identify that drive that will pull you through those hard times. It's very important.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Oh, this is also another one from the source, which I 100% agree about failures. That it will always be side by side
Yeah.
along a
Yes.
success.
Yeah. It's always going to be there.
Criticism.
It's going to be there more so at the beginning than it will
Hmm.
be later on. But yeah, you've got to build a thick skin and just keep moving and use those to your advantage and be like, okay, I see maybe that this wasn't working and I'm going to work on that. And but don't let it overrun you. Like it's important. They're just learning opportunities to grow.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Again, which I do 100% agree is that which I need to learn from as well.
Same. I still struggle with it.
Well, is that if you're not feeling it, you're probably not doing it.
Very true. Yeah.
There's
Those are the words right there, folks.
Yeah. What was it? My buddy, well, Nick told me was it. He told me this while we are playing a video game together. Anyways, I forgot to what it was, but yeah, if you don't swing the bat, you'll 100% miss.
Yeah. Well, who said that? That's not a Nick original. That's somebody else's.
It's not a Nick original, no, but he said that to me while we were playing a video game about me not doing something in a video game.
You miss like 100% of the time, yeah. So.
Yeah, but it's absolutely true. Yeah, yeah. If it's something you love, then again, it is a hard thing to do, but which to let your emotions out there all lonely and vulnerable.
That's what I was gonna say. It's that vulnerability we were talking about earlier. Just like it's an extremely vulnerable career because you're putting what's in your heart onto canvas. I mean, it could be silly, ridiculous things that might seem that way to other people, but you put it there with intent and you're offering it to people to share. And so it's extremely vulnerable.
And finally, the last point is, I would assume we probably talk about this eventually in a solo episode, but marketing.
Marketing, the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the unfair advantage of fine arts and musicians and other people out there that's in this category that would fit the starving artist genre. Is that you got to do everything on your own, which sadly is the reality of it.
Oh God, it's so hard. That's definitely a good whole other episode. Trying to be the admin for your work, the marketing expert, and all of that.
Sucks. I hate it. I almost don't do it. Rodney has to tell me to do it.
I know I do.
Because
don't send me that clip. I gotta post it.
Which today, won't be today when you listen to this, but I will be posting some work. Finally, after a while.
Excellent.
It's weird because
I'm very excited to share it.
It's weird because if you don't post something, people think that you're not doing anything.
Exactly, and they disappear. They forget about you.
Yeah.
Goddamn social media. I'm sorry. I'm very cussy today.
That's okay. So, what did we learn today from this conversation about starving artist?
That it's no longer a useful term, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I think
it was a romanticized thing from the past.
It's become a negative stereotype. It's okay to have a day job. It's okay to have only a day job and paint for the rest of your life. You're still an artist.
Yeah, people will judge. That's the thing. It will never go away, or I don't see it going away anytime soon. But you can't let that dictate your life. If that's something you want to do, then you got to go with it.
Yeah,
right. It may take a lifetime, and let's not forget. Most artists that we adore and especially in the 19th 19th century artists or 18th to 20th century 18th to 19th century artists they didn't really saw fame back in those days.
Well, some did, but
some did.
I mean, it's not like worldwide fame. I think the way it is now, it can be. But
yeah.
Within our community, but not like
so but then again, but they still lived throughout a pretty long time just painting, so it's possible, it's doable. Just gotta believe in yourself.
That's gonna be the music for the end of this episode.
Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
All right. Well, then should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Let me do a wrap up phrase of what I learned.
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. I totally cut you off there.
Oh no. I think it's pretty much the exact same thing what you just said, but don't let others throw that word around your face. Oh, you're a starving artist, blah blah blah, whatever. You're the one. You're the one in control whether you want to be a starving artist or literally be starving. That's up to you. And even if people use it as a derogatory term, screw them.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Your
I
path
think
is your
that's-
own. You do what you need to do.
I think that's the only time you're allowed to slap your parents in the face if they ever use that word. I don't know. Maybe.
Just don't.
Probably not.
Don't tell them you
don't
heard it
ever-
from this podcast.
No, don't ever slap your parents or physically harm your parents. You're here only because of them.
Tell them you heard it from Joe Rogan's podcast, then ours.
But maybe you could just at least do this or like the motion.
Yeah, just the backhand. Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, that's
either.
mean.
Well, the thing is, like, if they were to use those words, the phrase to you, and you want to be an artist, they're just looking after you because there's a lot of negative thoughts of how artists live their lives. So,
Negative
I don't know what
stereotypes, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what I learned from this episode today, to be honest with you. I just feel sad now.
Yes, I feel like amped up and ready to fight. It's just
Well, yep.
Kardashians. I'm mad.
Well, yeah, there was several of those today.
Ready to get
wasn't
online and start trolling.
there? All right. Well, any last words on your end, Ronnie?
Just thank you to everyone who has stuck with us for so many episodes. And I can't believe we're already 3 episodes in, including the double aught. But yeah, I just appreciate all of you. And I appreciate you listening to our interviews. We have Andrew Kadima coming up, which is very exciting. So you'll get to hear about his working process. We're super stoked about that.
That is going to be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Yeah, and just thank you guys for tuning in. We love you all, and we're sending lots of hugs.
Lots of virtual air hugs. Lots of stage 2 air hugs. It's a little closer than a stage 3 or a stage 4 or stage 5.
Are you making a COVID reference stage? Like, okay,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I like that.
It's about 2 inches close.
Yeah.
To the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not exactly touching, but slightly.
Yeah, I like that. You can reference it to like how teachers used to be. Use your 6-inch voices. Did they ever say that to you? It's like, what?
I feel
what
like I've
does
heard that
mean?
before. Use your 6-inch voice. Who the hell talks 6 inches close?
Yeah, exactly.
To
I remember when teachers would tell me that in elementary school, and they're like, "That doesn't work."
What's that? Half a foot? This?
Yeah.
Who the hell comes up this close? Wait, this is a 6-inch conversation.
Yeah.
Too close. That's like movie closing. Like if you're about to freaking eat the guy's face,
it's like
or
that guy,
stab them.
Yeah, the guy on Seinfeld who would get uncomfortably close. He'd be like right up to you, like, "Hi."
Well, folks, on that note, thank you very much for joining in this session of 2 Idiots Talking About Art, and we hope you'll come back for another one.
We'll see you later.
Yeah.
We love you, and goodbye.
Bye.
We're making art. We're talking art. One of us go down.
Now, Hassan, I have a great idea.
Oh, what is it?
The other asked,
Let's do a podcast.
and so it begun.